Please welcome the man who is a force of nature, Larry Brown. Woo!
Am I going crazy? That was the question I asked myself for almost a year. And as with every story, there's the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, so I'll give you both sides of this story real quick. When I was young, I was one of those super smart kids, started college at 17. First thing I did was found a 23-year-old PhD student mentor, and he took me and did all the mountainous things up there. And one night when we were on about our 10th campfire night, he said, Larry, we've become pretty good friends now, and I want to tell you my life story so that maybe you can learn something. That's what mentors do. So he told me his story, and that was when he was younger, he tried so hard to fit in, but he was just too smart. People didn't understand him, he didn't understand them, he couldn't communicate properly, and so he tried to commit suicide. That didn't work out too well, and he didn't like it, and he hoped I learned something. So I thought about it for a few days, and I sure enough decided, no matter what, I'm not going to try to fit in. It's just not worth it. So, while I'm not the best storyteller yet, I assure you that gave me an enormous amount of freedom in my life. It was amazing. So I went on to be very successful. My nickname was Lucky Larry because good karma things happened to me all the time. I was living in a dual zone residential commercial condo in Old Town, had rental property. My CPA firm was very successful. 2 of my clients went public. I signed the audited opinion statement of a publicly traded company. Put me in a pretty small window at that time. And I was running this group called Company of Friends that was loosely type A personalities that read Fast Company magazine when it first came out. It was bleeding edge. We were bleeding edge techies. And we decided to use our talents by partnering with a nonprofit. So we partnered with Bite Back, and I was the chairman, so I joined the board of directors of Bite Back in their 3rd year of operation. And I was on the board for 10 years. Then I timed out, and then they asked me a year later to come back for 2 more years. And just a few weeks ago, I attended their 25-year anniversary gala. And you have no idea how much pride I have in all the stuff that I did, and how many people I helped as a result of that work. And then my most likable karma story is a friend of mine got me into motorcycling, and I just bought a motorcycle a week ago, was still riding in the parking lot, testing the brakes and stuff. And he called me up and said, I want to go visit a friend in Cleveland. You want to go? Well, I didn't have 2 hours worth of road riding experience. I didn't deserve that. But he was a professional. He rode a lot, so I knew he could help whatever. So we went and had a great time. Sunday afternoon, we're coming back on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and my motorcycle starts dripping gas onto the hot engine, which is not good in case you're not aware. So we pull off immediately on the next stop, and the town's closed. It's Sunday afternoon in a small town in Pennsylvania. My friend rode a bike all around town. Not a single store open in the whole town. We didn't know what we were going to do, so we're just sitting around gabbing about what the possibilities were when this fire truck drives up and stops. Now, we didn't call the fire department. We didn't even wave them down. They just stopped. Anything we can do to help you boys, they said. So sure enough, they had this putty that was good through gas, and they puttied up my gas tank, and we got to drive home that day. The most amazing karma story I can think of. So now here's the yang part of that story, and I sort of admit that I started in that I had a motorcycle wreck. They measured my skid marks. I started skidding at 83 miles an hour, and I hit an 18-wheeler. Wasn't very close. And the worst thing that I had is called brain shear. And in layman's terms, what happens when you have brain shear is your head's moving forward at a very high rate of speed, and it hits a piece of metal that's not going to move, so your head stops. But the insides keep moving, and then they bounce back. So when your brain neurons were communicating like this. Now they've been tossed around, and so now they're like this, and they're not communicating with each other. So I was headed back by helicopter and a few other things in the last 7 days of my life. My dad's pretty funny. He says, "Don't worry, Larry, you didn't miss anything good during those 7 days." So then when I got out of the hospital, it turned out my partner ripped me off for a few $100,000 in the business, and that's to be expected. And so I had a pretty bad few years while I made it back up, and then good things started happening again, and life was going pretty good. But bad things were still happening to me, and nobody could explain it. I couldn't explain it. I didn't know what was going on. It was bad. And in a simple example, I hired over the course of 25 years 15 attorneys, and all 15 of those attorneys took my money and then did the best they could to do the best they could to screw me up, make my matters worse, make me lose money, got me convicted of a crime I didn't commit. It's just bad. And a few other bad things. One, I went to see a psychiatrist. Some of these are pure coincidence, by the way. So I was seeing a psychiatrist, and my dad's recommendation, and we were just starting to hit it off. We'd been seeing each other for months, and things were going good. And then the guy had the nerve to have a heart attack and die. Can you believe that? So now I'm all out in the open again, don't know what to do. I started doing all these alternative therapies. I probably got 100 alternative therapies under my belt. And then I found another high dollar psychiatrist. This was $1990. He was $400 an hour. That's a lot of money 30 years ago. And after about a year of me telling him all these stories that were happening to me, word for word, exactly as they happened, he just finally said, "Larry, I just can't see this many bad things going on to one person. That's not how life works. You've got to be exaggerating." And of course, obviously, it didn't do me any good to see him anymore. So other things went on that I don't want to waste a lot of time. Actually, I got to. So then, finally, I went to my dad, and this is the biggest disappointment I ever had with my dad. I told him all the things that were going on, and said, "Dad, I need your help." And he was no good. He said, "Larry, you don't know who did what wrong to or why, and can't fix it, and the psychiatrist can't help you. Nobody can help you. I can't either." So I was pretty disappointed. 10 years later, he's been dead 10 years, and it still hurts that happened. But anyway, so finally I decided I'm going to hire somebody to help figure this out. So a few weeks later, he came back and said, "Well, Larry, I didn't have to work very hard on this one. There's this builder who's basically a bad guy, and he, for 25 years, has been blaming you for stealing one of his customers. And he's pretty mad at you, and he's paying his attorney to cause you all this trouble." And that's just the kind of guy he is. I have in writing, and he gave me it in writing. The president of an engineering company with 15 offices called him a bald-faced liar in writing. So that's just the kind of guy he is. Good luck, Larry. So while that was obviously horrible news, and now I have this guy worth $75 million that I've got to go fight somehow. But to me, this was great. I'm not going crazy. So it's been a little while to straighten up. I'm still not done, but I'm really looking forward to Larry 2.0. Here I come.